Well, Mr. Turkey, I guess it's time for you to die. Welcome to What is a Lutheran with Pastor Fred. We're not at St. James Lutheran Church in Marion, although that is where the program originates, but we're at my house, and it's the day before Thanksgiving, and we're getting ready to eat some, turkey. Although I have to admit, I don't really like turkey. I'm more of a ham guy, but that seems to be the traditional thing. You know, Thanksgiving is kind of a weird holiday for Lutherans, I think for Christians in general, because it is actually a national holiday, and yet we have a church service about it. And if you think about it, we don't have 4th of July services. We talk about the 4th of July. We may have prayers about the 4th of July. We don't have Veterans Day Sundays. We will talk about our veterans and honor them and stuff like that. But traditionally, church services are done on things for like Christmas, which is a holiday, but it's a church holiday for first and foremost. Easter, sometimes people get some time off for Easter, but really that's a church holiday. And yet we have this thing called Thanksgiving, which not only is not a church holiday, is something that's very unique to our nation. For instance, I spent a year in England, and they don't celebrate Thanksgiving over there, although they were nice enough to throw a Thanksgiving dinner for us Americans that were living over there at the time. But when you look at this holiday, it's kind of confusing. It's like, should we be holding Thanksgiving Day services? Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with honoring our nation. We pray for our nation, we pray for our leaders. But in Thanksgiving, we hold Thanksgiving Day services or Thanksgiving Eve services to remember that we have a lot of call to be thankful for. Whether it's our nation, whether it's the food that we have, all those different things. And we had our Thanksgiving Eve service last week at St. James because we do it a week early. We had this fantastic Thanksgiving dinner that was just beyond the pale. So next year, the Thursday before Thanksgiving, come to St. James and you'll get a meal like you'll never forget. Plus we worship. But I tend to think about all the Thanksgivings that I have had in the past. You know, our Thanksgiving memories. We tend to think, Thanksgiving with family, but most of my memorable Thanksgivings, I have to say, really weren't with family. They were in kind of weird situations. One, it was in North Dakota many years ago. I've told this story when I was a pastor, and literally on Thanksgiving, the weather shut down the state. And so we all ended up in this small town down in the middle of town at a restaurant eating dinner together. Nobody could travel. Kind of a Hallmark Thanksgiving, although I hate Hallmark movies. And the other Thanksgiving, though, that I remember and probably I'm most thankful for, happened a couple years before that, also in North Dakota, in Thanksgiving of 1989. My friend and I, he was headed to North Dakota State, and I was headed back to seminary, and we were driving across the state of North Dakota. And a snowstorm out of nowhere hit, and it was bad. I mean, really bad. As it began to snow and we got past Bismarck, we're headed toward Jamestown. The interstate began to look like something out of a Hollywood disaster movie. I mean, there were cars off this way, cars off that way, and you couldn't stop. Because if you stopped, you were just going to freeze out there. So you just had to keep driving. We're both driving our separate vehicles, and finally it's getting dark, and we get to what we call Jamestown, North Dakota. And we couldn't communicate with one another because it's 1989, no cell phones. We kind of signaled one another, and we got this off-ramp. And I'm telling you, we slid on this off-ramp. We came sliding into the exit. And we got off of that, and we got into a hotel and spent the night. Next morning, we got up, Thanksgiving Day, and our Thanksgiving meal that day was burritos out of a microwave in like a Quickie Mart. And it was the best Thanksgiving dinner I've ever had because I was still alive. And if you saw the roads the next day, you felt fortunate for that. And I had a lot to be thankful. God had preserved me. Now, I probably wasn't thinking about that at the time, but as I've looked back through that years later, I've realized how God took care of me. So, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? And whatever it is, remember that as you're eating dinner on Thanksgiving Day. Thank God for your family. Thank God for the country you live in. Thank God for whatever you have. And And thank God that you maybe are sitting in a warm dining room eating instead of a gas station, or maybe on the streets somewhere. And if you're in those situations, thank God too that He is with you and continues to preserve you. So welcome to What is a Lutheran. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Peace out.